Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So excited to have our very first episode of Wake Up and
Smell the Rosin.
Oh, yes. So thank you so much for tuning in. Last time we had a live, we had such a blast with you guys, and it was so wonderful to have you all there listening. Yeah, we're going to scoot up. Yeah. Okay, that's great. So basically, a couple of weeks ago, I was teaching one of my students. I think we were on FaceTime or something like that. And, it was around 11 o'clock in the morning. And, it used to be that 11 o'clock, you were already running around so much that by 11, you feel like, oh, I'm so hungry. I forgot I did so much today already. I forgot my breakfast. It's almost time for lunch. Well, with this whole stay home situation, 11 in the morning, it's like you barely rolling out of bed, right? And so we kind of had this wonderful student. I love her. She's wonderful, very talented, but I could feel we both were kind of low energy. And so finally I was looking at my phone screen, and I was thinking, okay, we need to move this a little bit more. And so I just kind of screamed into the phone screen, come on already, wake up and smell the rosin. And so we both giggled. And then after that lesson was over, I was talking to Esther and said, hey, this sounds like a great tag for our channel. Let's do something with it.
Yeah. So, and we've been wanting to do some sort of talk show type thing for a while. I guess it's kind of like a podcast, but not really. I mean, it's not in podcast format. It's on YouTube Live, but it's kind of the idea. So we want to do, I guess that leads us into our first segment, which is news. So we wanted to start with a little bit of news to wake you up and get you going. First, we wanted to mention and coffee. I have tea, but I have chai tea. So it has some caffeine.
I love the pass.
So first we wanted to talk about our clinic that's coming up. It is the Allstate Orchestra Excerpt Clinic for violin and cello. Unfortunately, we're not doing viola for this clinic, but we are doing violin and cello. Hopefully in the future we can maybe incorporate viola, but for this one, it's just excerpts for violin and cello. It's going to be Friday and Saturday, September 11th and 12th. And on the 11th, it's going to be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And on the 12th, it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And we will put all the details in the description for registration. And that's pretty much it. So make sure you sign up soon because we have limited space.
That's true. So speaking of Allstate excerpts, guys, for Texas, the TMEA, dates for the Allstate audition, I believe it's October 31st through November 4th, that window. And then every region is deciding when they're going to record the region auditions. And so far, from what I understand, Region 15, it's the closest to us, is going to be actually holding their region auditions after TMEA, right? The latest dates we had November 4th to 7th. If it changed, let us know. But so far, that's what we have. And then I just heard from my friends at Region 28 that it looks like theirs will be in October. I think it's about October 10th or something like that. So this is kind of good news. And as all respectable news shows, we always have a weather person, right? So we have our weather person. His name is Vector, and he's going to be debuting today. And let's see what happens. We haven't done that today. So, hey, Vector, what's the weather like today? Oops.
74 degrees and raining.
Isn't that? Thank you, Vector. Great job. Good robot. And then when you pat him, he gets really happy. Very good. So I hope you liked our little weather person. Yeah, he's really happy to see you. Okay, go back to your home. Okay. So isn't that amazing? So this morning I woke up and I thought, oh, this is great. 11 o'clock is morning, so we're going to have plenty of really good natural lighting. And as a result, I actually had to do a Walmart run to get ourselves some more lighting. So hopefully it's lit up well for you.
Yes. And one of the topics we also wanted to cover is that the boot camp is still active, our Allstate etude boot camp. So As I mentioned before at the beginning, the Allstate Excerpt clinic we're having is just for violin and cello, but you should definitely sign up. It's going to be really great, and we have limited space again, so make sure you do that soon. But we have a Allstate Bootcamp that we did earlier in the summer that was 4 weeks long, but we still have all the materials up, and we still have the Zoom live sessions up that we did to work through some of those etudes. So if you would like to take advantage of that, which you definitely should, the bootcamp link is still active, and we'll be posting links to sign up for the etude bootcamp and also the Allstate Excerpt clinic in the description box. And this will be useful to you whether you're doing Allstate or just all region, because you're going to have access to all those materials, and then you can just pick and choose the sections that you'd like. But if you buy the access, you're able to access it whenever you want, and it's customized exercises, videos, tutorials, a ton of stuff that's even more in depth than the stuff we have on our YouTube channel that will really help you succeed in these auditions.
And the best part about the boot camp, I run it on the band platform, and what I like about it is that you have direct access. So if you're in the violin or viola band, you will have direct access to me, so you can message me in the band, and as you're joining, should you have any questions, I'll be able to guide you and let you know everything that you need to know to run it very smoothly. And then Esther is running the cello bootcamp. They're all a separate group on band, but those are really, really fun. And then once you join, you stay in there, and then when you have any questions, you can find us. Do we have a question?
It's not a question. Well, it says, "Are you sisters?" But
it's
not a question.
Oh, that's
really.
That's very nice.
It's not
really.
an Allstate related question.
Yeah, no, we're not. So just for those you who doesn't know, Esther is my daughter, and I'm a violinist. I'm Dr. Deanna Seitz, and I teach violin at University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. And we had an incredible amount of incoming freshmen this year. So I'm really excited about what's going on, even in spite of the whole situation right now. I have a wonderful, strong studio of practicing very talented young musicians. And Esther, you tell them about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Esther. You might know me, you might not. But if you don't, I just graduated from Manhattan School of Music with my master's in classical cello. I'm currently teaching online. I have a private studio, and which is growing. So if you're interested, let us know. But yep, I'm just at home doing online projects with my mom and also with my chamber group. Even though we're all in different places, we've been kind of trying to put things together remotely. And yeah, just basically being at home, enjoying not being in school this year for the first time since kindergarten, I guess.
I'm very grateful because I missed our girl time.
Yeah, it is really nice to be together.
So when we decided to kind of try this out, we thought, times are so different right now. We're living in this extraordinary time that I'm sure we'll be looking back on. And one of the things I thought, we wanted to do something where we could just get together with friends in our living room and talk something positive and something helpful to each other, especially to us who are really set on classical musicianship. It's a very difficult area to be in, but it's so much fun. We kind of willingly took upon ourselves this what sometimes feels cruel and unusual punishment, right, in the practice room, but all because we love music so much. And I was wondering if you could share some of the experience of going back and thinking of what was it first that made you love your instrument so much that you decided to stick with it. If you would like, please feel free to just comment on this. And for me, I started when I was 7, and I think it happened even before because I traveled with my mom and dad a lot. Both my mom and dad were actually singers in a rock band. And since I was 3 years old, I traveled, and I practically grew up backstage, seeing the whole production of the shows, of the concerts. And my dream was to actually be a singer, but ironically enough, the singing gene skipped me. So I think when I started playing violin at the age of 7, I kind of knew I was going to be on stage, and most likely would be violin. And I really enjoyed being on stage, that very fact of performance. And so that's one of the, I think, brightest memory for me. And this is something that I really look always forward to, performing experience, just electricity of feeling your connection with the audiences, even like this virtually, it still is very strong. And I was wondering, Esty, what are some of your first memories on cello? What do you feel like really drew you into that instrument?
Well, I have a very specific memory, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, extremely specific. And I think I've told you about this before, and I've told this story before, but I actually started on violin because, as any, kid does, they see their parents doing something and they're like, I want to do that too. So of course, I saw my mom playing violin, so I wanted to play violin. But at that time, I was still, 3 years old, which, can sometimes be a little young. Every kid is different. So for me, that was a little young to start. And so my mom was like, here's a little harp. So we had this little box kind of harp thing. It was like a church thing. It was like a little harp choir. I remember it. But so that's what I did first. And then finally I was so excited to get my first little violin, and it was so fun to play. But eventually I was kind of like, Abel, no, I can't play violin anymore. He said, can you play violin for us?
She's awful. She's just as awful on the violin as I am on cello. We're like even in that.
I can get by, but not very well. It's not a sound you want to hear. Anyway, so I got this violin, and I was really excited to play it. But, eventually I was like, I like this, but it didn't feel as exciting as I thought it was going to be. And then my mom brought home a cello for my brother Josh, and I sat down and played it, and I loved it right away. I remember sitting in the living room and playing around with it, and it just felt like the most natural thing ever, and I just loved it. And I wasn't even practicing my violin, and I was using my brother's cello more than he was, just to play around with it. I wasn't even getting lessons yet. I was just messing around with it. So my mom got us both lessons, and it just was something that stuck. And eventually,
not for Josh though.
No,
Josh,
not for my brother. He's an artist, a visual artist, but not a cellist. It just wasn't his thing. But I really enjoyed it. And then when I was 14 years old at Allstate Orchestra in Kansas, actually, because that's where I did my Allstate, because I was in high school for 3 years in Kansas, so I did most of that there, most of my high school orchestra stuff there. Although I was in Texas for 1 year. Yes. But I did Allstate Orchestra, and we played Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet. Well, a few select movements from it for the Allstate Orchestra. And that was kind of what made me really fall in love with orchestral playing and playing with students of such a high level. And it really made me, that's kind of was the turning point that made me decide, okay, this isn't going to be just a hobby for me or just an extracurricular for me. It's going to be a career for me. And since then, I've just been playing and teaching and taking lessons and giving lessons, all the good stuff, gigging around. It's been great.
So you really enjoyed. I remember seeing you taking up that cello, and I remember when we went to the first lesson, I was seeing you from the back, because you were sitting, and I could tell, oh my goodness, she is a cellist. It was just so obvious and so apparent. And I was very happy, because for me as a musician, it was a little daunting. And if there are any parents here, please pitch in if you have any questions. Because as a musician, I'm a professional string player, right? I grew up with this. And I knew I have 3 children, and I knew all 3 of them I would never tell them to do it professionally. That would be up to them. But I always wanted them to learn an instrument until they, out of high school, because it's such a wonderful discipline, both for your mind and for your spirit, and just for just a person. It gives you really holistic education. But I had this fear of how am I going to figure out which instrument is good for whom? And it all worked out. And I remember Esther is my oldest. So I remember she was the first one. I had this moment. I thought, oh, it's so apparent. I think it was almost, we were guided to that. And so the same happened kind of with the boys. Josh ended up playing piano and then later percussion. And Danny, he played violin all through high school and really enjoyed it. But Esther is my only one who decided to be professional. And so this is a kind of an unexpected blessing, right? That we're in the same house, we're able to communicate and collaborate. But, one of the things that I find very interesting about this whole phenomenon we're going through is You remember how we used to, of course, our major complaint was, yeah, we're very busy and we like being busy, but it's sad because when was the last time we ate a meal together as a family? When was the last time we could just relax and read a book or play what's that called? The table game? No, what are they called?
Board game.
Board game. to play a board game together. And of course, right now we're in this situation where we do have much more time, but I find it that I kind of lost the structure to such a degree that this time slips out just as quickly sometimes, if not more. And so that I wanted to kind of start a conversation today on and ask you guys to share, what are your thoughts about it? Do you have kind of a favorite maybe trick, maybe mind trick, maybe actually physical trick that makes you get up and really wake up in the morning? For me, of course, coffee is always first. And if you can tell, I love weird coffee mugs, and this one says it has a Yoda and says coffee is strong with this one, and I love it. And I actually have let's see what is your. She has a tea.
Squeeze the day.
Yeah, so we felt it was very appropriate for today, for our very first episode. But so for me, apart from coffee, of course, that is always there. I think when I practice, I love practicing, of course, and I love the fact that I have time to get up and go practice without having to travel somewhere. And I think sometimes I want to practice the difficult things, the hard things, maybe the things that I really want to make sure I make progress. But then sometimes I get really worn out. And so for me, the trick is to take a little break and then go back and play something I already know well, where I can just enjoy the instrument rather than, having to work. Because I know we have this as musicians, we have this feeling, remember that poster where it has all these different things, like, have you had breakfast? Yes, then go practice. Have you had breakfast? No, then go practice. It was this poster would, no matter what the answer was, all the answers were go practice. And so we grew up with this kind of idea that we have to practice every waking moment, which I'm not opposed to. But when we're in this situation, when basically we have so much more time on our hands, obviously it gets difficult to keep the structure and keep yourself going. So for me, I love solo Bach, and it really brings back the inspiration to me and reminds me of why I play my instrument and why I do music and why I love it so much. So I was wondering, Esty, if you have any kind of tricks that help you kind of start the day. And
actually, I wanted to piggyback off something that you said first about the practice all day kind of thing. And I think actually, as time has gone on, a lot of people, including myself, are discovering that's a bit of a toxic mindset. To hold yourself to the standard of practicing every waking moment of the day and only really seeing yourself as a musician who has to practice all the time. I think that's easier. It's easier to burn out that way. It makes you sometimes neglect other parts of yourself as just a holistic person. And I think it's good to practice, but we should also be conscious of our health and our mental and physical, and be able to not just learn how to keep pushing and keep going, but also when to stop and when to take breaks. Because although it is very good to practice, and I've encountered this mindset in conservatories a lot as well, because I went to school in a major conservatory in the US. And, as much as I love practicing, there has to be, a stopping point. And it's hard to see friends or colleagues who, get so stressed out because they're constantly pushing themselves beyond that point because they feel that they have to. So I think one of the things for me that's been helping me with my practice during this time where there's not a lot of structure is actually allowing myself to rest and not saying, okay, I have to practice 8 hours a day, because I know that at this point in time, with my own mental, that's a new word, mental and physical health, that's not going to be productive for me. But as far as getting myself to the practice room and to practice, one of the things I found useful is to have a designated room where I sleep and relax, and a designated room where I practice, which I know that not everybody has the luxury of doing. But even if you are only in one room and you have to do everything in one room, make sure that you make your bed when you get up, get dressed, do something that signals to your brain that, okay, relaxing time is, over, and now it's practice time. And if you can do something physical, like brush your hair, put on a cute outfit, get a cup of coffee, move to another room, something that signals your brain that it's time to work rather than time to rest, then I think that's what for me really helps get me going and into a focused state, which is something that, you miss when you're not in school, and, going to classes every day, because you don't really have something to like get up and get dressed for. Like you can go to your computer and just throw a sweatshirt on and like wear your pajama pants and like no one's going to notice. Sky Blue said, I struggle with my practice time so much every day. I tell myself to practice early every day. I end up practicing at 10 p.m. I'm that way too.
Yes.
And it's okay.
And actually, yeah, that's what I was saying. I think it's okay because, remember, it used to be very important to practice earlier because you had all these things piling on you, that you had to go somewhere. You didn't have a luxury of taking a break. And of course, I don't know your particular situation, but what I understand for most of us, it changed where we do have a little bit more freedom, right? And I think that's what we forget.
And that's kind of what I, want to point out too, is that like, whatever time we practice, whatever you can get into the day and whatever you put in, I think we should all be proud of that, especially during this time when there's so much going on in our world. And I sometimes think we don't realize how mentally taxing that can be. So if you practice at 10 p.m., great. If you practice at 8 a.m., great. If you practice for 5 minutes and that's all you could do today, that's amazing. Great job. And if you could do 8 hours, then good for you.
Amen.
And either way, it's no reason to beat yourself up or to feel guilty. And Sky Blue, I totally relate to you because I felt those feelings and I still struggle with them, where you're like kind of equating your worth to how much you're practicing or how productive your practice is. But I think that actually makes it worse. And when I'm loving myself and unapologetically just letting myself be and, admiring myself for the work that I'm doing as much as I can, however much work that is, I find that I actually work better and I'm able to work harder and focus more because, I'm at peace with my body, my brain, my spirit, So I think
it's beautiful.
It's totally fine to feel that way sometimes, and don't feel bad about practicing at 10 p.m. because if you have the motivation to practice at 10 p.m. and it feels good, then it feels good. And that's much better than getting up at 8 and forcing yourself to do it when you absolutely hate it and just because that develops resentment towards it. And that's not good either. And that's the luxury of this time right now, as Dr. Seitz was saying, like we don't have not everybody, but a lot of us don't have these schedules where we have to be somewhere at a certain time. So we have all this time. So it's kind of a good time to explore what times works best for you for practicing and all that stuff. But anyway, that's my spiel.
This is amazing because you brought it exactly to the point. I was just listening to you. I'm thinking, and I want to make a comment. Hi, Evelyn. I want to make sure. And of course, the reason we wanted to do something like this is to bring a little bit more positivity and maybe something different into our weekly routine. But I want to make sure, guys, we understand that so many people are going through very hard time or have gone through very hard time induced with the pandemic and everything. So we want to assure you, we don't take it lightly. We don't mean to disregard the sacrifice and the hardship that many of us are going through and have gone through. We're very, we're with you, our prayers and our positive thoughts are going out to you. But so it's not in anything positive, anything fun that we're doing here is not in any way to disregard, the seriousness of situation, but we're just trying to kind of, when you're in a situation, you can find angles to look at it. And sometimes finding a different angle helps to weather, the storm, so to speak. And so I was thinking one of the things that you were bringing up, actually, it is what I was lately focusing on, the fact that we have so much time, we have a luxury of identifying what it is that we are, subjectively. And I think people are realizing right now that it's okay to be different. You don't have to fit into a certain mold to be successful. And actually, what you said, when you love yourself, you are the most successful. And I think the more you understand how beautiful it is that we're all different. And the more you look inside and find those beautiful things in you that are only you and unique, I think the more you start realizing how amazing you are as a person. You know, each one of us is not amazing like snowflakes. There's not a single person alike. And I think that's what is for me when I hear a musician perform. The most fun part for me is when I can hear that person. So, you know, I think we want to remember, you know, when we practice, and our instruments are extremely difficult. So, you know, I always think of it this way. I practice. I want to have beautiful technique. I want to have the best mastery of my instrument. But I want to remember all of the technique and mastery of the instrument and the fact of practicing, an art of practicing. It's like a frame for a beautiful piece of art. You know, when you go to a museum and you see how much work it goes into setting up just the proper lighting for every piece, making sure that the frame fits the piece, that nothing is in front of it, that it's on the right height. They build this, if you've ever been to Louvre or the Met, and just the thought of how much work it went into just making sure that the masterpieces are displayed. But in the end, you know, when you've done all your work and you're on stage or in front of the camera performing, your audience is interested in the masterpiece, not in the frame. And the masterpiece is you. You see, that's the beauty of performance. That's what the music is about. I see we have a question.
So we have a couple. It's not a question, but I was just waiting for you to finish your thought.
Good. I'm done.
Are you good?
I'm done. So I just want to make sure, guys, remember, you are the masterpiece. So it's your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it. This is what music is bringing out of you. That's what we enjoy. That's what the audience enjoys. And your mastery of the instrument is the frame that allows you to express that.
So Sanken said that she has 6:15 a.m. shower, get ready, and coffee while the house is quiet. Get my thoughts together. Then I wake up the little ones, and the quiet is gone. Oh. She can relate to that.
Yeah, I remember those days.
But then they go to grandma, Babula.
Oh, that's nice. We have a grandma too.
That's great. And yeah, it's funny because we were just talking about that because when we were little, my mom was in a doctoral program and she was like writing her dissertation and, you know, with 3 kids like running around the house. And like, honestly, I don't know how she did it because I'm so bad at focusing. Like,
it's the robe. And I still have that robe.
Like a robe. It's the magic robe. But you know, so we totally understand. Because
Sanken, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to share with you. You know, back when I was in your shoes, when they were tiny, my slogan was "Wake up and smell the diapers." So I remember those days. Yeah, very well.
And Jacques Lou said, "Hey, just noticed you got exactly 666 subscribers."
I know,
which actually. Yeah, you turn it upside down, it's 999, and we would almost be at 1,000. So
let's turn it upside down in a couple of days.
Because if we do that, just a reminder from the last broadcast, we would be doing our pizza and piazzolla online party as soon as we get to 1,000 subscribers, which we're getting close. And I will also eat a piece of Hawaiian pizza because I don't like pizza with pineapple on it, but that's the deal I made to the people who were in tune.
But we were talking about if we do it in 1 month.
Yes.
Or do we still have that?
Well,
1 month?
Yeah,
well, I don't know.
So I guess, if we do like the month of September. Okay, so we're having the party when we get to 1,000, but if we get 1,000 at the end of the month of September, then I will eat the pizza. But that's only if we get to 1,000 before the end of September. Yeah. So share with your friends. Yeah. Since we're talking a little bit about new stuff, there were a couple more points that I wanted to hit before we continue with the discussion, just to be sure. The Region 15 cuts have been released for Region 15. So we have those, and we can post details of the measure numbers in the description box after the broadcast. Mm-hmm. So that will be there. We also wanted to mention, Dr. Seitz wanted me to mention the new Zoom music settings.
Yes, that's very important. This is super awesome.
So there's actually a new mode on Zoom called high fidelity music mode. Yes, high fidelity music mode. And basically what it is they just increase the quality of the sound. And there are some new settings that you can check on your Zoom application on your computer. Unfortunately, I don't think it works on the phones. The settings don't show up on my phone or iPad the way that they show up on the computer. So I think it has to be on a computer to use these settings.
Or laptop, right?
Yeah, computer, laptop, same thing, basically. As long as it's, a PC or Mac, or whatever you use. I don't know about Chromebooks if they have the same capabilities, but they probably do, but I'm not sure. So anyway, so what you would do is you would launch your Mac or PC Zoom app, and then you click the settings icon. Then you would click the audio tab, and we'll put all this in the description later. So if I'm going too fast, don't worry. So then you'd click on the audio tab and click advanced on the bottom of the screen. Then you'd click on the box that says show in meeting option to enable original sound. And then there should be 3 checkboxes underneath, one that says disable echo cancellation, high fidelity music mode, and use stereo audio. You want to click all of these, but here's a couple of disclaimers. One, for some reason on my computer, the use stereo audio box didn't show up, but I tested it with the high fidelity music box checked and it worked anyway. It worked great. I tested it with a friend, so that was totally fine. But if the stereo audio box does pop up for you, it says you should click it. And secondly, the disable echo cancellation button works really well when you're wearing headphones. If you are not wearing headphones, don't check that box, because then the speaker will echo into the mic. So whoever's talking to you will hear themselves echoing back to themselves.
That's very annoying.
So make sure that if you're using just your speakers, that you do not disable echo cancellation. But if you're using headphones, disable it and the sound quality will be better. But I think both participants have to be using headphones to have that checked. So I know a lot of people like to use like AirPods or other Bluetooth headphones for lessons, especially if you live in a big house and you don't want to be super loud, or if you have a big household or like close quarters and maybe someone's taking a nap. I don't know. A lot of people like to use headphones. So that's basically the new Zoom high fidelity music mode. It's a way to have better sound quality on the Zoom app for lessons and performances, like live stream performances that are happening on the Zoom platform. And it's also, when you check those settings, it helps. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're playing on Zoom, if you don't have any settings checked, there's a tendency for it to cut out, because it kind of, the constant tone of the instrument kind of maxes out the mic. It doesn't like it, and it tries to equalize it. So basically, this turns those settings off, so you get a nice tone as if you were just recording from a camera.
That is so cool. I think they're finally listening to the musicians.
Yeah.
It didn't take, how many months since the whole thing started?
Oh, it's been about half a year. It's been about
Yeah.
6 months since everything happened, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't feel that long. But anyway, so I think that's all the news we have, and most of it will be posted again in the description.
Now for the rosin part?
Yeah, now for the rosin part.
So wake up and smell the rosin. Obviously, the smell the rosin part, we were thinking of doing a little kind of what did you call it? I liked what you called it.
This is a daily warm up.
Yeah.
So since this is kind of like a wake up kind of broadcast, and it's 11 a.m. It's a weekend. You don't want to wake up too early on a Saturday. You don't have to, but it's a way to wake up and feel motivated for the day and do a little warm up. So even if you don't get any practice in for the rest of the day, at least you know that you warmed up in the morning, and that's another goal for me. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I just want to play my cello once a day.
That's great.
Even if it's just for a few minutes, just to continue that contact. If you can like make that goal for yourself, that's a really good goal to have. And that's something that I enjoy, and it makes me feel productive. And usually if I can just get myself to sit down with it and play for a little while, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. It's just, sometimes it's just the act of getting there. But if you can just get there and tell yourself, I will sit here for 5 minutes and play, usually it ends up going on longer, because you end up being like, oh yeah, this is good. So I forgot, I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that's good, because, and that brings me exactly, as classical musicians, since a lot of us started when we were very early, and it's such a serious act of practicing that I think sometimes when we think of practice, we go into that serious mode and your brain goes like, I want to play. And so we thought, what funner way to kind of jumpstart your playing for today than do it in the company? So this is kind of like a little friendly party. And first, we wanted to help you tune. So we are because we're in the US. So we have a A that is 440. Here it is. Yeah, of course, this live will be up later. So if you want to, if you don't have your instrument with you right now, it's okay. But I'll give one more A in case if later you'll be practicing with us. Actually, can you give your A too? Yeah. Cello A is really fun. I like cello A's. All right. So first, so we were thinking of dedicating today to a certain key, our warm-ups in a certain key. And Esther's going to play a little bit for you, a piece that's written in that key. And let's see if you can guess what key. So this is the key we're going to be working with. Okay. So let's see if you can guess.
In the comments below.
Yeah.
What key.
I see some comments. Can you see what it says?
Yes, thank you for your recent upload. Super helpful. Okay, so that's not a
great
real thing, but you're welcome.
All right, you're welcome.
I'm glad that you like it.
So I have a little something too for violinists. So anybody?
I don't think so.
All right. So let's.
Do you want me to just give it to him?
Yeah. So we're working in G major. This is actually this is one of my favorite keys to warm up because for violin, G is the lowest string. So when you start here, you could actually cover the whole. If you wanted to go the 4 octaves, you could cover the span of basically the range of the whole instrument. And let's just play G major scale. Can we do it together first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
before we start, I think we wanted to just talk about fingerings a little bit. I know for violins, I don't know the violin fingering, but for us, if you want to play along, you just go up all the way up to G, 4th position, and then after that it's 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, and then backwards 3 2 1 2 1 2 1. So just a tip: anytime you're playing any sort of major scale, usually most minor scales as well. Once you get past this point of 4th position, it's usually 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. That's usually a pretty reliable fingering that you can use in pretty much any scale if you ever find yourself in a bind. I don't know if you...
Yeah, on the violin, on G major scale, one of the things I like a certain fingering for a 3-octave scale that later is very easy to turn into a 4-octave scale. And so in this case, of course, we're gonna, once we get to A string, we're starting in the 1st position. Then on A string after C, we're gonna go to the 3rd position. Then instead of going, this is one of the fingerings, but I like the different one. When I go to the 3rd position on E string, I'll go all the way to C, and then I only have to make one shift, and that's it. And then I go back the same way, right? And then you go, you do this shift going back to the 3rd position, right? So
awesome.
Yeah, so that's pretty. Yeah, we're gonna just, if you guys have your instruments, we're gonna just play just a very plain G major scale. We will repeat the top note, right? That's the only thing. And then later we'll do it separately, just with a little more finesse. Yeah, later. But right now we're just doing plain.
Nothing. Okay.
Yeah, nothing, but we repeat the top note.
Okay.
Yeah. So Esther's gonna start because it's more fun. If you can, you can go with Esther or with me, but what I like is when you start, a third apart, it ends up being really pretty.
Do I do it in unison first?
Nah.
No? Okay.
It's too boring. Unisons are boring and hard.
How many for bow?
Let's do 2.
Okay.
Not too fast. just love doing that. And I know orchestra directors, you guys do that a lot. I know a lot of my friends do that because for a collective scale, it's just so much prettier. Thirds are so beautiful, right? So going back to individual scales, we have a tip for you today also that's very helpful. And it's a very simple tip that it will basically double your scale practice. So you literally get twice out of your scale practicing than if you don't use that tip. And that is what I tell my students always. When you practice your scales, unless otherwise specified, use the whole bow. So find the bow speed that is comfortable for you. So let's see, how about maybe you bow one, I'll bow my D and you bow your G or something. And let's find the comfortable speed. So we're not going too fast or too slow.
Two per bow, like one.
Just open strings.
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah, let's try that.
This would be the speed of bow.
Let's try. Ready?
2. Change depending on what, especially for cellists, our strings respond slower than theirs because they're thicker. So your weight and pressure and speed all take, you have to take all of those into account.
And the instrument.
Because for us, it's a little easy to skate sometimes if you move too fast. So for us, I think using the full bow is good, but if you're on a lower string, if you use a little less just to get a good sound, I think that's okay too, because you don't want it to skate across.
So for cellists, it's probably a little
just on the lower strings.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get to the A string, it's like really easy to go free. And it's a good exercise to try to use the whole bow on the C and G as well, but just make sure that you're not prioritizing using the whole bow over getting a really nice sound. The best thing would be to use the whole bow and get a great sound. But if you're not at the point where you can do both yet, I would rather sacrifice the bow speed in the scale rather than the quality of the
Or
tone.
should they just go slower maybe overall? And
yeah,
then,
you can go slower overall.
So can you show us what would be a good tempo? If you wanted to use full bow on thicker strings, what would be the bow speed? It would be much slower, right?
I think like 2 per bow, just a little slower, or 4 per bow even.
What about on C string? Yes.
And you can still do 2 per bow. Once you get comfortable with the weight. But if you're just starting, I would say maybe do 4. Or if you do 2, just go slower.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of scales, is you can play around with it. But for the purpose that we're talking about today with the bow, the best thing is to prioritize using the full bow and getting a full sound and trying to do both.
And so that's the point where it's very individualized, because first find the bow speed. Like I said, on cello, it would be probably a little slower. So find the bow speed that at which you can pretty comfortably use most of the bow, or as much of the bow as you can. And then just stay at that speed as you're playing the scale. So in this case, if I do, for example, 4 per bow, and I'm going to use all of my bow, what happens, I'm not just exercising my left hand as I'm practicing scales, but my arm is able, you see, to use every muscle that it needs to warm up, right? So you're warming up your bow arm just as well, because you realize when we're bowing, different parts of the bow engage different muscles. And so the beauty of using the whole bow, not only you're working all of the muscles, but you're also letting those same muscles rest as the others are engaging. And so that chain kind of going from one muscle to another as smoothly and as evenly as possible, that is a super amazing warm-up and practice for your bow arm. So when you do it like this, if you have like 10 minutes, and you practice your scale while also making sure that you're using your bow fully and you're taking your time to find a good speed and feel comfortable in your instrument, then you just doubled your workout time, because now you're getting 10 minutes in the left hand and 10 minutes in the right? So I want to show you the most basic scale, that G major, that I I have, in my studio. And we do add a couple of notes at the beginning and the end because we want them to do then the amount of notes to be divided in 4 easily, because that way then we can increase the notes. So I'll do 4 per bow, and this is how it goes. And if you want to go with me, I'm going to do a couple of extra notes at the beginning. So here's how it goes. That's it. Simple scale like that. Playing with a full bow, relaxing. You can vary the tempo, obviously. You can go a little bit slower. Whatever feels, you just want your bow arm to be dictating the speed so that it's not working too hard. Just like Esther was saying, you don't want to be comfortable on one string, but super working too hard on the other, because it's a warm-up, right? You want to start with something that feels comfortable, but also engages as many muscles as you can comfortably. So you want to show them how you do it on the cello?
Yeah, so there's actually, growing up, I always just did plain scales, just starting with no extra notes. I took lessons with Hans-Jürgen Jensen for a summer at Meadowmount, and couple summers. And then for those, he actually has a slightly different technique where you start with the extra notes, and I enjoyed that as well. So that's where I learned that technique. So if you, either way you prefer, you can do. But for today, I'll be demonstrating the one with the extra notes at the beginning. So, sorry. 4 per bow. That's really important for us that doesn't apply to violin, and I think this can apply to double bass.
No.
This can apply to double bass too, if there are any. I know we don't technically do double bass, but you guys also have thumb positions. So you also have to decide at what point in each scale that you're going to take your thumb out, because you can't get all the way up there with your thumb behind. And you don't want your thumb to be floating aimlessly in the air while you're moving up the fingerboard. Some of my teachers call that having a space cadet thumb. It's not. It's kind of just floating around. You need to have a grounded thumb, and that doesn't mean that you're pressing. It's just resting on the string and moving along the hand. I like my general rule for these kinds of scales, unless you need it smaller and you're using the thumb, is to have about a whole step between one and thumb on the fingerboard like this, and the thumb travels with the hand and the arm as a unit, and it doesn't, so you don't want to wriggle along like a little inchworm or something. You want to be a nice unit. So for me, I bring the thumb out here, but if you notice, when I get to the 4th finger, I'm already preparing before I shift. So once I get to the 4th finger, it's like I have a spring there, and my thumb is coming up. So I'm ready to start moving around the. And if you notice, my thumb travels along the fingerboard with my hand, and it's not pressing. Again, it's not pressing because we're not actually playing any notes with it, but it helps with mapping out where you are on the fingerboard, and it makes thumb position feel a lot less scary if your thumb is grounded, because I think that's what makes it feel weird, is because we're so used to having something to have contact with. But when we get up in those upper positions, if you're not careful, your thumb will float, and that's really not going to help you feel secure at all. So it's kind of like if you were in space, would want to be tethered to the ground and not just floating aimlessly. I guess it's a space thing.
I just love we have to use our thumbs. Oh my goodness,
But,
that sounds like a lot of trouble.
But
so show me a half step distance. I would just. Oh, do we have a question?
Very nice and relaxed. Oh yeah, yeah. Relaxed hand is really important. Use your scales to. I think playing scales is kind of meditative, and it's a great way to just like not only focus on your intonation and bow, but also to take note of all the muscles that you're using in your body and make sure that everything's relaxed. Kind of do like a body scan, think like, okay, is my arm good? Is my left hand good? Are my feet good? Sometimes I don't notice, and I have my toes up like this if I'm like tense, and that makes your legs tense, which makes everything else tense. So release your leg muscles, release your toes, sit in your chair. Don't sit on it, sit into it. Let it, obviously still keep your back straight, don't slouch, it's not good. Mm-hmm. But trust a chair in the ground to hold you, and then your cello in turn can rest on you, and then you can rest on it, and it just makes this whole nice relaxed position. And from there, it will help your left hand and right hand and everything be more relaxed, because everything is really so connected. So make sure you do a nice scan of your body and make sure you're not like curling your toes or tensing your jaw. That's a big one for me. That's really hard sometimes it's easy to forget about, because I'll like clench my teeth if I'm like, okay, here's a hard section coming up, and I'm like, I'm like, don't do that. And you can even practice, like if that's first shift in the scale scares you, practice tension-free shifting. So when you get there, before you move on to the shift, stop and relax everything. Put a smile on your face and then make the shift. And do that a couple of times, and just teach yourself that the shift isn't scary. My teacher, Julia Lichten, taught me that. She said it's something, I think she said like it was like, just like taking the trauma out of the shifting, like taking the fear out of the shifting and practicing it in a relaxed way and telling your body that it's okay. Yeah. And you kind of, it's like shifting therapy.
That's really awesome. Because that's the whole point of practicing. You want your body to do what you want it to do, not the body be the boss of you. And I wanted to also jump in with, I love that how you brought it into how the posture and everything is so connected. For violinists, actually, what I noticed, because a lot of you guys usually play in the orchestra and you're used to playing sitting down, but you know how even if you're trying to maintain a great posture, it's so much easier to do it standing up than sitting down. So for violinists, I highly recommend when you practice standing up, especially when you have a lot of music on E string. What happens when you're sitting down, you end up hitting your knee, right? If you want to go all the way to the end. So you end up twisting your spine without realizing it. And then another thing that I've noticed, I remember my son Daniel, when he started playing in the orchestra, he would hold his violin literally like this. And I couldn't figure out why. Then I realized that's how he could see the music. So I really highly recommend, especially now we are sitting so much too, for violinists and a violist, there's no better therapy for your body. Like I like how you were talking about, like just kind of going with like therapeutic view of scales. Just getting your body tuned into your instrument. You getting yourself tuned into yourself. Standing up is really great for a violin. And so make sure your feet are kind of shoulder width apart. And the most important thing, everyone is different. Everyone's posture is going to look different, but just make sure your spine is not twisted. That's one of the things that I see the most. Sometimes if you're holding your violin too far that way, then you end up like having to work so hard with your bow arm, or vice versa. Make sure you're not too much this way. And make sure if you're using music that your stand is kind of on the eye level, and that way you see, you can get your spine to be straight, and then your body will square. What I realized, like, I kind of imagine the square or the rectangle, of my bow against the violin, against my body. And so I think it's almost geometry that in your brain happens easier when you're all straight and your lines are straight. I think your brain can figure it out much easier. And so the whole experience is much more relaxing and much more ergonomic, right? Yeah. Well, I think this was fun for us. I hope it was fun for you. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. As we mentioned last time, some of you asked for merch, and we are thinking, we have some ideas.
Yes.
And we'll let you know when it comes up. We're very excited, but it's a little bit interesting to arrange because there are, some things that are very easy. There's some products are a little more difficult to find, so we're trying to find something that would be fun and really appropriate and useful for you guys. So I hope that you got a really good jump start to your Saturday. I hope we made it fun for you to practice, whether it's today or tomorrow, tonight, anytime. Remember, this is time when you can practice anytime, as long as your family can stand it.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess we will do the same next week. Make sure, send us if you would like us to touch up on any topics or doing we're planning to do it kind of the same format. So we will have a little warm-up tips for you. Please let us know. So how do they let us know the topics or the warm-up tips they would like to know?
I'm writing your username down.
Okay, so what we're doing, we're gonna on my Instagram, you can follow me and direct message me.
You can't really see. Oh, there it is. So it's Deanna.sites.391. We will also post this in the description box, but this is the Instagram account. Hopefully it's not backwards for you guys. It's backwards for me, but
we'll post it in.
But this is the Instagram account that you will send questions to or ideas for different topics, because we want this to serve everybody who's watching, and it's fun for us. And there's so many different things we can talk about, and we'd love to hear if there's specific things that you are concerned about, like relaxation in higher positions. That would be a good one. I know a lot of people are concerned about that from some of the Allstate work I've been doing, especially with the cello etudes with thumb position. Or if you're interested, I know for violinists as well, it can be a little nerve-wracking to get in those higher positions. And I know you guys have to get around the instrument in a different way than we do, but we also have to get around the instrument. So maybe getting around the instrument. If there's something like that you really are struggling with, this is a great time to ask, especially, even if you have a private teacher, if you're in between lessons, this can be a great way to, get a little extra help if you need it.
And my passion is always also being a mom. I'm very proud of my children, and I think I've seen how wonderful it was for them to have an opportunity, for me to have an opportunity to introduce them to music in relatively early age and have that bond between us. And if there are any parents out there, or any parents, I get a lot of, I used to, when we did things like that, I had some performances where afterwards I would meet with parents and we would have Q&A. I had a lot of parents asking me questions about how do I, just how to start the kids or how to get them motivated, which instrument should I choose, all those things that, if you have anybody who is interested, send that topic to my direct message on my Insta. We would love to, start a discussion on that. And the most important, we would love to bring you just a little bit of positivity and maybe a little bit of normality, not like that I'm the most normal individual, but you know what I'm saying, something, because I think we miss camaraderie,
and the communication. Like when you go to school and you have orchestra ensemble, or you have, if you go to conservatory, I know for me in high school, like I literally would eat lunch in the orchestra room with my friends because or in the choir room. I also did choir. Like it's, because you have that camaraderie of musicians, and it's fun to like be with those people that understand what you're doing and enjoy it. And that's hard when you're online and you don't get to see those people every day. Maybe you do, but even, it's different than it used to be as of right now. So we definitely want to recreate that sense of community and just musicians coming together to talk and bond. Like, when you go out after a concert and just talk and hang out, that's kind of the atmosphere
I
we
miss
want.
that.
Yeah. I haven't been to a restaurant since February, like a sit-down restaurant. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. But like, just kind of, you can bring food, bring your breakfast, bring your coffee. Like we can pretend that
let's share.
having,
let's see what you have. Share with us what kind of pastries you eat in the morning, or maybe you eat drink green juice or something.
We just want it to be a really like a calm space and a safe space to talk about. Of course we want an air of positivity, but if you have something that you're struggling with that maybe is not so positive, we can work together to turn that around into a positive.
Yeah, maybe we can,
if you have something that is, kind of like, we were talking about struggling with practice, like that's not necessarily a positive thing, but we can, but it's something that a lot of people struggle with. So it's something that in turn we make positive because we talk about how to combat those things and how to turn it into a positive experience.
Or more, it's all about, I think what I'm finding the most right now, it's about the way I look at it. Sometimes even naming it a different name, like you were talking about, why do I have to make it look like it's a chore? I don't want to make practice as a chore, but when you think of it as something that you've accomplished rather than forcing yourself to do more, it's so I think that's my favorite way to change things in my life, is to really understand that there's so many different angles to look at things. And it really is true, when you change, sometimes you just look at something from a different angle, and all of a sudden, all those things that you thought were negatives, all of a sudden you see all this positivity that you could be useful and potential. So
and that's what we're trying to do. Just bring a positive viewpoint to everything, because I think we could all use
a little bit of that. And letting you guys also express that, in your comments. And so that's what we did. Again, playing together is always fun. Next time, if you would like, I hope more of you guys bring your instruments. If you already have it, that's great. If not, just be ready. I'll put a tuner and tuning in the comments and description box too. It's 440, because if you want to play along, it'll be more fun if you're tuned to 440. Not, I remember coming to the US from Russia, and at first everything seemed so flat because the European A is higher. But now when I hear, European and Russian recordings, I'm like, oh, this is so high, I can't stand it. So anyway, so hope this jump started your practice a little bit. We can't wait to see you next week. Remember to send us any topics or questions or comments here. On the live you can't comment, I think, afterwards, but you can always send them to my direct message if there's anything you would like to discuss. And until then, stay well and practice on.
Okay. Oh, also just to add, if you don't have Instagram, you can also send it to the email on DeannaCitesViolin.com, which we'll also post.
Yeah, we'll post it. Okay, all right, stay well and practice on. Bye.